goes. Good evening, guys. Welcome, Dan. Welcome, Jack. How are you guys doing?
Great. Really good to be here.
Doing great, Breno. Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk to us and talk to the community. I think we're going to have people not just from Brazil, but all over the place here. So thank you guys so very much for being here and sharing this with us, especially during this pandemic times, which is a bit tough. And I'll go that way. Dan, how's Paris? How are you guys thinking about opening up? Are you guys? I saw a video that you posted, probably the last one, about closing and safety. I just wanted you to talk a little bit about that, please, if you would.
We are planning to open back up May 30th, so a week from tomorrow. We start off just with licensed jumpers, get everybody back in the air, get everybody current, and we're hoping to be able to be close to normal operations with just a few extra things to keep it as safe and as COVID-19 friendly, for lack of a better way of putting it, as possible. We've installed a bunch of hand washing areas, both in all the loading areas. So we're getting everyone's going to have to wash their hands before they get on an airplane. We have a check-in area. So everyone coming onto the airport will have to check in, answer a series of questions, get their temperature taken. They're going to get a wristband, which shows that they've been, approved to be there for the day. And in the airplane, you have to have, a mask on the whole time. So there's a few little things that people will have to do in order to make sure that everybody is comfortable. But the idea is to have as many people as possible on the drop zone who are all comfortable being there. There's so many different feelings about it. Some folks who just couldn't care less and just go about it as we are, and others who are very concerned. But it doesn't take that much effort from everybody to create a situation that all can be comfortable. So those little things are the added things we're going to be doing starting on Saturday.
So you probably have a full list of protocols, a full protocol to return, right?
Yeah, we're going to be posting probably in a few hours. There'll be another video as well as all the new protocols that will be in place when we open back up.
Right. And Jack, how about you, where you live in New York? How is the reopening there?
Well, actually, Breno, I'm in Boulder, Colorado.
Colorado, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I've lived in New York for much of my life, so it's an easy mistake. But I can speak about it. My sister's there, and I talk to people in New York all the time. It's it's obviously been an epicenter. It's obviously had a high rates of infection, fatality, etc. It's also a very condensed area, so I think it'll be one of the slowest places to reopen. I know, for example, business owners that own restaurant chains, they're going to open in the city last, and they're opening out in the suburbs where obviously there's more space, etc. I heard a rumor lately that they were going to close down side streets in Manhattan so that restaurants could put the tables out literally on the sidewalk in the street to keep the distance from people. So anything that's less cars in Manhattan, I think, is a force for good. So.
That's awesome.
People are being really creative and innovative. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was just talking to Jack a couple of days ago, and I could hear this ground noise like a motor. And we were talking, and then all of a sudden, one of those noises that you hear in the background and you don't really pay attention to it. And all of a sudden, Jack was like, "Man, there's a woodpecker here in my backyard." I was like, "Oh, that's it."
Well, that should have been your first clue that I'm not in New York.
That's right. And then let me just tell everybody, people that are watching, the whole audience here, I just want you guys to know that I'm friends with a TED speaker and a book writer. All right. So then, going out that way, I just want to ask you a little bit about your TED speech was really cool about how you started saying that we're not all about adrenaline, we're all about flying. Can you go there just a little bit? I thought it was really interesting because we always heard the opposite.
Well, I think most people think of skydivers as we must be adrenaline junkies. Like, why else would we want to do this? But if you think about it, as you know, as regular skydivers, we really try to keep the adrenaline to a minimum. You know, it already is what it is already. I don't need to add any more adrenaline to the sport. It's not really about that anymore. Of course, when you first start, it's an amazing adrenaline rush because it's so new to you. It's a completely different environment than anything you've ever experienced. But if you stick with the sport, it becomes much more than that. And where you actually, I know in competition and world record type events where there's a lot more excitement, your heart's beating a lot faster, we're trying to do just the opposite, calm that down as much as we can because we don't want the adrenaline to get the best of us. If you're a skydiver and you need an adrenaline rush every jump, you're not going to last very long because you're going to have to keep pushing limits in ways that you're going to end up hurting yourself for sure. I think the reason people really skydive is because we all just want to fly. It's just an incredible feeling for all of us, regardless of what discipline you're in. I think for most of us, it's all about being in the sky, being able to fly, pushing ourselves like that.
Fantastic. And Jack, you went into, as far as I remember, you went into ice climbing as well, didn't you? And apparently people told me you were pretty good at it too. So you're excelling not only in skydiving but other sports as well. What are you doing these days?
I think many or not everybody that's listening in here, sport is a big part of my life, and whatever that sport is, I'm exploring my own boundaries. I'm going to places and being with people that are just, it's a big part of my life. So I was, a big skier before I even started skydiving, right? It was a family sport. We skied. When I got out of skydiving, I was climbing quite a bit, and ice climbing, yes, in the mountains, and now I ride a bike, right? And I found, I think what's most interesting is the bike racing that I'm doing right now, which is basically masters road racing. So visualize old guys on bikes acting like they're 18 years old. It's the most dangerous sport I've done. So ice climbing, skydiving, none of that. Has put me in the hospital as many times as crashing my bicycle. So I don't know what that says about me, but that's what I'm doing with my time these days.
Maybe you are.
Every year at the Nationals, we usually throw together some kind of old airspeed team, and we keep trying to drag Jack back out for the Nationals. So Gary tells us, I haven't jumped in a year. It's like round one. I'll be your jump back. Don't worry. I'm an AFF instructor. It'll all be legal. Not a problem.
We'll pull you in, right?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
We'll call it your recurrency jump. It's not a...
That's fantastic. So since you mentioned Arizona airspeed, and I know for a fact that the French at the time were the leading team, and you actually mentioned it on your speech as well, but the French was almost unbeatable. At least that's what at the time it felt like. But it seems to me, and I haven't really talked about this with Patrick, and so I don't know what they used as methodology, but at least for me, being involved with you guys and being more closer to you guys than the French, it seemed to me that you guys created a methodology, that you guys created a way of doing things, and like and very serious about this and not missing steps and doing that stuff. So I just wanted to go a little bit, maybe not even a little bit, but go into this because I think this is so great. And I don't want to maybe not mention the French here and Patrick and his team and stuff, but it seems to me that Arizona Airspeed, what you guys started, actually changed skydiving in a professional level. And not only that, I want to go into the dissemination of information. You guys were not withholding information. You guys were just happy to disseminate information and go. So I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. So then how can you go about that, please?
Well, the French had basically dominated for a decade. or pretty close to it when we put the team together. Jack and I had been competing against each other. He was on the East Coast, I was on the West Coast. Our teams would always be in the top three with the Golden Knights. Jack's team would pretty much go to the World Meet each year and get beat by the French. And he was pretty much sick of getting beat by the French, and I was getting sick of being beaten by someone who was getting beaten by the French. So we thought we better, the only way we're going to have a chance of winning the World Championship Series is to put everything that we have together. And I think part of that was because when we first structured the team, we had different ways of doing things, different strategies, different philosophies about it. And the first thing that we had to do was really try to put the best of both together. And it was very important that neither one of us came in trying to push their way forward. We both really wanted to figure out what the best plan was. And of course, if you know Jack and I, we both thought we had the best plan going into it. So we were confident with what we were doing, but we were also confident that obviously that plan hadn't been enough yet. So there had to be another one. There had to be a better plan, and that plan could only be a combination of putting everything that we knew together and a lot that we didn't know. So while we did put a whole new training structure together, we asked other experts, both physical and mental trainers, to help us do that as well, plus the own experience that we had. So that's a big part of what helped build the plan, and being open-minded enough. It wasn't important to either one of Jack or I that we had to be right. We just wanted to find out what was right. So we really shared that goal. And then it was also part of the team that we wanted to, skydiving is a small world. It's a small community. And the competitors are even a smaller portion of the small community. And we knew we were going to be figuring out things that were new and that hadn't been done before. And it was really important to us to try to share this with everybody. Why should we withhold that? What good is that? It's so much more fun to be able to send out videos and say to people, man, look at what we figured out. Look at what we're doing. That was a big part of the goal, too, with the team, was to be able to share this, not to be a team that tried to hold everybody back, but tried to raise the entire sport as we were pushing forward ourselves.
That's awesome.
Okay, sorry, Breno. I just want to amplify a couple of things that Dan just said, because it's a really big deal. And I think at the time, Dan, it seemed like common sense to us to do. But you look back on it with some time, I think it was a really big deal. Our commitment to look at both of our systems, bring in external other coaches from other fields and even other skydivers, and look at all of the ideas and judge them all on their merits, to try them all out honestly and judge them purely on their merits with no pride of ownership, right? It's my idea, it's your idea. In fact, I remember we were even taking that language out. Like, we weren't talking about whose way it was that we were picking from. We were naming it other things, trying it out, judging it on its merits, and picking the best way, regardless of who it was. And Dan, I honestly, you're generous, you say, because I feel like you personally led the way with that humility and lack of ego, frankly, to not feel like it had to be your way, and which made it, you starting out that way, modeling that, made it easy for me to then, it's like a natural thing. So I actually have to kind of give you credit for that. So I just wanted to amplify that, because that's a big deal, I think, in anything that anybody may be trying to achieve. Doesn't matter what sport or business it might be in. But I also want to go to the last thing that Dan was saying, because in my mind, I think of everything that we do with Airspeed, that's the thing certainly personally I'm most proud of, is that, we were, the whole thing about transparency and sharing that you started off with, Breno, that was not accidental. We decided, against kind of the way things had always been, to do it differently. And Dan, you might remember, I think we were in DeLand. We were even trying to I think we were trying out Mark Kirkby, right? We still hadn't put the slots together. And you and I had already thrown ourselves against this. We, between us, had more bronze and silver medals than anybody wants. And we were asking ourselves, why are we still doing this? Like, why? You know, do we really want to win a world meet? Is that all this is about? And I still remember that conversation. I remember that picnic table on the Dropsmith Pavilion when we talked about the sport and some of the things about the way, you know, almost at a cultural level, what was going on inside between teams. It was just downright nasty. Even I have memories of world meets before then, where between the French and the U.S., the vibe was really negative, and part of that was, you know, being closed, right? Like, we know it's our secret stuff and we're not going to share it. And I know what lit me up was not only doing airspeed and putting it together to try to win a world championship, like throwing ourselves at that for so long. It was really about trying to change the sport almost at a cultural level and really wanting it to be a better place for everybody to have fun. And I know that sounds kind of highfalutin, but we did talk about that. It wasn't an accident. And it's what I'm most proud of personally.
Yeah, and
it's great because you see now in the sport there was a lot of tension and animosity between teams back then, and man, I think we initiated a new culture that I don't see that as being the case at all anymore. I just don't think it's there at all. I think everybody is hoping to beat each other and cheering each other on at the same time.
And the good thing is that's the dynamic I wanted to just go back one little step on. That is so the dynamics where you guys were sitting around and throwing out ideas. Was that how you came up with the perfect plan, like the methodology? We're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and we're going to do dirt dive this way, and then we're going to do this. And so this was like a round table, and you guys were just throwing ideas and picking up the best ideas.
No, it didn't. It wasn't decided in one sitting. It took weeks and months to go through it all and develop it. When we actually, when the team first started training, we really had to pick some place to start with. Because we could sit around and have that conversation, but we really didn't know what the right things were. We had to go and do them. We only knew what we knew. There was so much we didn't know. And I remember the first. I think it was the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we just said, guys, let's do this. At that time, we hadn't unnamed things. So I said, let's just do it Jack's way completely for the first, 2 or 3 weeks. I just want to do everything. We did block technique, exits, every part of it, dirt dives. Let's do everything that way. And I promise to consciously not sabotage Jack's way.
That's the hard part.
And I remember having to say that to the team. I think I can to make sure I give Jack's way, because we had competed against each other forever. In my heart, I wanted my way to be better, but I didn't want it that bad. I wanted to win, and I wanted to come up with the best system. So we really had to say, I'm going to be open-minded and just do everything the way you say, and put 100% into it completely.
That's fantastic.
And because we did there's a lot of things different. The exits were completely different. There's a lot of stuff. So we did that for 2 or 3 weeks, and then we switched and we basically did it my way for 2 or 3 weeks. And then we looked and measured everything. Which block was faster, which technique was faster, which exit was faster, which dirt dive was more efficient. And then sometimes it was one or the other that we chose. Sometimes it was a combination of the two. Then we had, so we started to put together what was best from our pieces. Then we had Philippe Chourneau from the French team come and coach us. And we stole everything he would give us. So we basically put together everything that we could. We spoke to Golden Knights to see how they had done things. So then after all that, then we came across, okay, here's what we think is the best plan and best technique. That was more the evolution of it.
That's fantastic. And Jack, how was this whole dynamic thing for you about? And I mean, it seems like it was a perfect match between the two of you, like this whole knowledge base and this whole wanting to do, and how this all thing played out, like in the beginning. Jack, how was it? And I'm going to put up a picture here so people can see just the beginning, both of you guys on the, let me see if I can put it up. Both of you guys on the first world champion. So I just wanted to see, it seems, even on the picture, it seems like you guys were so close together in terms of being into this thing. What was
Yeah.
it like a mindset? It seems like it was a match mindset and technique and wanting to do and perfectionism and all of that stuff. How was it?
Well, let me talk about the match part because again, this is a real lesson in life. We didn't really know each other. We thought we knew each other before we did this team, and we kind of didn't like each other. Well, actually, I think mostly Dan didn't like me. I was more neutral, but no, honestly, we it's interesting how I was in Florida, Dan was in California, sometimes in Arizona. We were so far apart. We had all these stories about each other that kind of came down to we're incompatible. We do it different ways. We have different values, etc. And one of our teammates, Kurt Werner, actually had experiences on both of our teams at different times prior, and basically said, "Hey, you guys are a lot more alike than you think, and you ought to get together." Now, the fact of the matter is, Dan and I are not alike. We have really very different styles, different approaches, and I think what part of and I'll call it the magic that happened is that we were able to take, and again, like block technique, we were able to take the best of each other's styles, right? Dan's, a humanistic guy. He's a people person. He's really a heart the size of the U.S. and really oriented towards the interactions between people and the impact on people. Cares about it, interested in it, and at that point, that was an utterly undeveloped muscle in me. I was analytical. There's right and there's wrong, and there's truth and there's false, and the impact on the decision on people or the way it came across was not even in my mind. And so I think we were able to not just take the best of our block techniques and exit techniques, but we were able to take the best of our personality styles and bring them into the team. And I think, again, I always, when we were all said and done, and I look back and people said, how'd that work? How could you do that? Right? We're so different competitors. The two words that came to my mind, and maybe it's Pat, but it was the fact that there was mutual respect, right? So we each knew the accomplishments of the other person and who they were as a human being. And there was just Dan, you obviously know I respect you now, but I respected you then when we got together. It was just irrefutable, your character and who you are. So the respect was there, but on top of that, we both wanted the same thing, right? We were out to win that bloody world meet no matter what, and so we trusted that our intentions were to do that, and so with that respect and trust, we were able to take those differences together that I think in some teams might have blown a team apart, because maybe I was being a jerk, and then Dan be like, I hang around with a person's jerk, and maybe I'm sitting there going, can't you see it, like this? And anyways, I'm losing my train of thought, but the point of the matter is we were able to take very big differences in style, not just technical skydiving approaches, to marry them into, to get the best of both and not suffer from the worst of either.
Yeah, but and then going forward a little bit to this whole dynamics thing, and it seems like that's when the term Sky God started going down the drains, right? That's when you guys started being more human and transferring information and actually leveling out with, lower technical level people. And it seems like that worked out so well that everywhere you go in the world today, people are mirroring that stuff. So I just want to thank you guys very much for that stuff. But just going back a little to this subject. So how was that magic? I mean, how was that thing about getting all of this? And did you guys were able to nail it, or every year you guys were like, okay, or improving? Of course, everybody improves, but I'm talking about the techniques itself, like the methodology. Were you guys able to, in how many years, to say, okay, this is it. This is how we do it. Dan?
I don't think you ever finalize it. This is how we do it. This is how we do it now. Based on the information and the experience we have, this is our best plan. And then you carry that plan into whatever the competition is. And then you reevaluate everything at the end of that and see, okay, what else can we consider? What else can we look at? and try to keep a really open mind, and always have to remember that, especially in this sport, as well as I think pretty much any other endeavor, you're never going to have it perfect. You're never going to have it nailed down. And depending who's on the team, it also could grow a little bit. And one thing that was a real benefit was the balance of the entire team. So we spoke a lot about Jack and I each having our ways and each having our own experience, but then we were kind of set in our ways and in our beliefs. But then we also had Kirk and Mark, who weren't set in any ways and were much more open-minded than both of us, would often see new things that we may not have even recognized because we had more experience and we were more set in our ways. So being able to have those guys in a position where they always felt completely free to speak up and say, here's an idea, and then Jack and I remembering to, again, not judge the idea, even though that instinctive feeling in you is, I already know what's right.
We tried that. We tried that. Yeah.
We tried that. Yeah. I can't. We said that so many times. So I think it was constantly evolving, and it wasn't just Jack and I either. It was the entire team.
Yeah, but what I want to say, and Jack, I want to go back to what you said about you not being alike, and maybe I said it maybe the wrong way. What I meant to say is, it seems to me, at least, maybe at least for me on the outside, I haven't been on a team with you guys unless on a 300 way or other events with a lot of people. But it seems to me that you guys are very alike in the sense of being so precious about things and being so passionate about things. And I can still see that, like, every event I go with Dan, and I think on the 3-pointer 217, I think, Dan, was the last event we were together. I mean, even today, I can see you, Dan, just the same way. I mean, with the same passion, the same way of doing things. And Jack, same thing with you. I mean, I see that on your climbing. I see that on your work-related tasks that you're doing now. If I'm not mistaken, consultancy, sort of work for big companies and CEOs and C-levels and all of that stuff. Though that's what I was trying to say. It's like, it seems that I can feel it, and I don't know if I'm wrong, but that you guys have both that real passion about things. And when you put something in your mind, that's it, and you go, and it's in your heart, in your mind, and you go for it. But am I wrong about that? I mean,
no, you're right. We're both fanatics. Absolutely. Sure. My first wife will tell you that's why she left me. Absolutely, we share that. And again, I imagine a lot of people on this call probably share that. It's people stay with this sport because they're so passionate about it and fanatical. Yes, I think we share that.
Fantastic. And what other parts? So does that happen in every part of your lives, pretty much?
I think, one thing you find in common, certainly in us and a lot of people and a lot of top competitors for sure, is we've had the chance to find something that we really, really loved. And in this case, it was four-way, skydiving in general and four-way. We made the choice to try to push ourselves to be the best that we could possibly be and hopefully be the best in the world. And in the process of that, it is such just a heavy, intense, challenging, inspiring life that you're leading. Even if you're living in your vans and eating peanut butter and jelly while you're doing it, to have something you love that much that you're that driven to succeed at, that once that's over, whatever you're going to do in life, you're going to put that same energy towards. Because if you're not, it's not worth doing. If it's not that important, it's not worth doing. It could be completely different things. It could be work, it could be climbing, it could be writing, it could be, doesn't matter what it is, but whatever it is going to be, it's something that you're going to put 110% into because you don't do anything less than that. And I think we had that in common already. And that's something you can, even though the personalities were different and even though the backgrounds and other parts of our lives were different, when you have that thing, that's such a special quality. And especially when you meet somebody, and not only do you share the same commitment and share the same trust and respect, you also realize that we needed each other. You know, we've figured out the only way we're going to have a chance to win this world championship is if we do it together. And that need then binds you even closer. And when you put those things together, you know, we were pretty confident that we'd be able to work together as a team just because of the commitment we had shown before, and our other teams. And there was no question about that, I think. But whether or not we'd come out being really good friends and really close was, you know, roll of the dice. Who knows? That'd be a bonus. We can win the world meet whether that happens or not. But when you've had a goal like that you shared, that you needed each other to accomplish, that you've just lived and breathed it, it's really fortunate when you come out being really, really amazingly close friends, which is definitely where we are now. I don't remember what the question was you started with, but that was
no, that's good.
I got to, because it's really special. You know, we may not speak to each other for months at a time, but we can't wait to say hi when we do, because that's such a bond that's been built through all of those things.
That's fantastic. And I just wanted to switch a little bit now, and both of you are motivators, and Jack, making a parallel into personal life and professional life, and I want to hear from Dan about this too. How could you tell people not only to be skydivers within that methodology, but how could you make a parallel within work? I know like I said, you're supporting a lot of C-level executives and big corps and stuff like that. How would you make a parallel with that methodology and that passion into people's lives, personal goals and professional goals?
Yeah, well, the parallels are extraordinary, actually, and I think both Dan and I can speak to this because we're outside the sport, sharing the experience that we had on airspeed in other forums. Dan's writing, Dan's speaking, and after Dan writes and speaks, and they get these great ideas in their minds, then I'm consulting and trying to help them realize it. I think, based on just building on what Dan just said, right? So the commitment to the goal, right? So we, no matter how different we are, this is what Dan just said, or what I heard him say, is that no matter how different we are in our values, our personalities, whatever it is, if we're committed to that same goal and really, really come hell or high water, we're going to achieve that goal. The trust in each other, everything falls away in service of that goal. And that's very true with the leadership teams that I have the pleasure to work with in large corporations. If you often I'll come in and I'll find a leadership team operating like a bunch of individuals, and they each run their own piece of the company, and they're interested in their own results and their own rewards. And when the leader of that team can get everybody focused on the singular goal and see how they're each of their individual successes totally tied to each other. So we win together or we lose together, and they get that. Magic happens. Magic happens. People they put away their petty egos, they lift up and focus on the big picture, and great things happen. And they'll run through walls together like they never could as individuals. And when you see it happening, it's amazing. And then they come back to you almost brought a tear to my eye, Dan, talking about the relationship that we have. And I don't, it's really hard to convey to people on this call how powerful and deep that kind of personal relationship grows through the shared experience that we had. And I mean, I could go on and on about it. Dan articulated it really well, but I see that in the corporate world as well. I see people on business leadership teams begin to get a bond with one another, a real true concern and care for one another, not just about they deliver their piece of the business so I can deliver mine and we can win together, but like caring about each other personally, caring about their kids. If somebody gets sick, they're worried about it, they're up all night about it. And that caring that enters into that leadership team, any team, I don't care what you're doing, is like a secret sauce. I mean, it sets stuff loose in really powerful ways. So again, I think I've forgotten what your question was, but the transference or the parallel, you got people together trying to do something that takes an organization and a team to accomplish, and they're human beings. This stuff doesn't matter if it's jumping out of airplanes or whatnot.
Right, and then I want to hear a little about you, but just going back a little into subject here. So, on your speech, you talk about this, about asking yourself 2 or 3 questions and having those answers, and just moving forward with it. So, and on what Jack said about you being the more humane or worried about the human side of things, does that come natural to you too, or is that a part of being focused on a goal and forgetting all else, above all else?
Sorry, I got to interrupt. Breno, you've never met his mother, I'm assuming.
I was going to say it, Jack.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, if you're my mother's child, that's how it is.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
It's just, how I was raised, and I am 1/100th the caring, loving human being that she is. One other thing Jack was saying about when you try to transfer what we learned with airspeed and what we did to businesses or to other organizations. One thing I found that I hear from people all the time is that, well, you guys were doing something you loved. What you guys were doing was different because it was a sport. It was something you're passionate about. This is a business. This is a job. This is something different than that. We can't build the relationships and the team that you guys built because that was a different setting altogether. And trying to get them to realize that actually you can. You can. If you're committed to the goal, if you share that commitment, yes, you can actually build the same team, but it also takes some structure for how to go about doing that. The same structure that we built with airspeed those first few months that we were describing. Companies need to have that because it's not as natural without having that really tight shared passion that we have on four-way. You need someone to help structure that, which is, I think, a lot of what Jack does. You've got people who are committed. You have people with the skills. You have the team you need. Now let's think about the team we want to build, and giving them those tools to be able to do that. But a lot of time it seems that people in work don't think this is a possibility. I just need to clock in and clock out and do my job, and that works. But your work will never be as inspiring as it could be if you treat it that way. It'll be much more fun and inspiring for you if you treat it like this team that we're talking about.
That's awesome. And Jack, just using this that Dan is saying, a lot of times, maybe teams and stuff, and all the teams. Sometimes, I mean, when I started, and of course I learned a lot from you guys, and just by watching and stuff. And sometimes when you're in a jump, and maybe when you're in your personal life or your business, on your work and stuff, and you have your goal, you have set it, but then you start getting stuck on things that happen daily, and you start focusing on that instead of focusing on that goal. So if you were to focus just on that goal, little things that happened on a daily basis maybe would seem much smaller as they usually are than it is if you focus on those problems. How would you go about doing that, focusing on the goal and having maybe a multitasking thing where you're aware of the problem, you're going to deal with it, you're on round one and you missed the point, and then you can just go back and forget about it now. I got to go to the next points and stuff like that. So how could you, on personal life as well as skydiving and personal, be on that goal? And what would be your suggestion for people to not on all those three events or phases or lifestyles? How could you focus on the goal and less on those little problems that we seem to focus on every day and make them as big as they can be, or much bigger than they are?
But I think to answer that question, we need a whole hour special piece on it. That's a really big topic. I think I will say something I think in response that might be constructive to Dan, if you can come in after maybe and help me fill it out. First of all, the reality is we're human beings, and two things are true. One is we end up kind of focusing on the here and now and losing the big picture. It happens all the time. No matter how clear we get one moment about the big picture and the goal, life happens, and we're going through life, and we get focused on the here and now. We really lose perspective. It just happens all the time. I know. I think one of the things from a competitive, when we were competing, that we got really good at was letting go of the idea of things working perfectly all the time. One of my first coaches said, when we were in competition, mistakes are not an option. And that really screwed me up for a long time, because I was looking for the perfect performance, and it just didn't exist. I never had a perfect performance. And a real sort of aha moment was this idea that, actually mistakes are going to happen, probably on every round, certainly on every round. So the question wasn't whether they were going to happen or not. The question was, how quickly can we recover from them? How quickly can we let them go, get focused forward? So if I'm in a skydive and I've just had a glitch in the exit, how quickly I can let go of that past experience, focus my brain on what's next, and just move forward into it was the real game. Not making necessarily fewer mistakes. Of course, you want to make as few as possible, but reacting, recovering from them as quick as possible. So if you take that out to sort of life and business and getting lost in the moment and losing sight of the big goal, I think the same thing's true. I think when things go wrong, as they inevitably do, some days, you just have a bad day, and you just got to go to bed and get a good night's sleep and wake up the next morning. And any kind of, personally, I have a morning routine where I have a little meditation and visualization about the day and what I'm needing to have accomplish, or the impact I'm needing to have. I have a weekly routine that's similar. I think if there's some kind of, any good athlete has routines, right? So if you can have one that would help you reset, I think was the word we used, Dan, and get your head back to the big picture, those routines will help you. But I'm kind of running out of steam on this one, Dan. What else would you add to respond to that?
I think part of it is having that big plan, right? To have a good plan laid out from the beginning that has the goals that you're after, and the understanding that there's going to be nothing but obstacles along the way, right? I mean, that's just how it is. And some of those obstacles are going to be ones that are going to come. You can anticipate them. They're the ones you expect, and there's other obstacles that just come out of nowhere that you can't possibly anticipate. And having a plan for how you're going to handle that, having a plan how you're going to communicate it between the team, and to keep in perspective how much that thing at the moment actually affects the big picture. Because you can't ignore these things, but at the same time, you can't let them become any bigger distraction than they already are. And I think it is good to compare it to the four-way analogy. People are in skydiving and four-way, eight-way people. The biggest mistake people worry about is brain lock, right? People don't worry about they turn out of place. People don't worry about sliding out of position. The biggest thing they worry about is brain lock. And the brain lock itself, generally, if everybody stays calm, if they weren't so freaked out about having a brain lock, then itself only takes half a second, right? Then teams' response to the brain lock can end the skydive sometimes, right? It could take 5 or 10 seconds, not the mistake itself, but your response to that mistake. And that's something we worked on a lot, so that the mistakes are going to happen. Let's have them, be done with them, and move on with it. And it's the same thing. People get so worried about the punishment for the mistake, but the punishment doesn't always fit the crime. The mistake itself is usually not as big of a deal. And I think when you keep it in perspective like that, have a plan for it, you'll be able to go through these obstacles more smoothly and with less stress.
That's great. And then let me ask you, are you, besides skydiving, because you're still full-time into it, are you, I know you're a motivational speaker. Are you working with companies as well? Are you doing that in on the side?
I'm sometimes doing presentations for companies.
Okay.
So I'm doing keynote presentations. I know it's called motivational speaking, but I really don't know what that means exactly. But that's what it's called, a lot.
I'm motivated when you speak, so.
I'm motivated too.
I always thought I just pissed you off. So I mean, my full job is running the drop zone, running Skydive Paris, and then sometimes I'm invited to go speak at companies. If I'm available to do it, I like to go do it. It's fun.
That's fantastic. And guys, let me ask you this. So you go through this, and then your history about the accident and all of that stuff. It's, I mean, every time I watch that video, man, I swear to God, I got teary eyes, man. I mean, it's just incredible, and that's what I guess motivational speaking is all about. So, once you reach that, I mean, you set a goal, you will go there, and you do it, and you make it. Do you guys set another goal? I mean, or you just go about, got it? How does that go?
Yeah. Sorry, Breno, but yes. I mean, it's a character flaw. I don't know, but I think I can speak for both Dan and I that life is a series of striving for the next thing to overcome and accomplish. And I again, I think I speak for Dan. We get I get a lot of satisfaction from that, even though I'm rarely comfortable. And yeah, it's what's next.
It's funny. One of my man, there's so many great experiences that Jack and I have shared over the course of the history and the years and striving for these goals. But one of my favorite ones, we wanted to win the world meet so bad. We wanted to win it when we were on different teams. It was 10 years in the making before we actually won the world championships. And that was the goal, right? That's what it was after. That was the target. That's what we were committed towards. And at the 95 World Meet, they were doing live judging. So when we tracked off from round 10, which was not the best jump of the competition, but we tracked off from round 10, and we got open, and we could see people running out from the tents, waving U.S. flags, and we knew that we had won. And we landed, and people were running out with champagne and high fives, and there was a big celebration for about 15 minutes, as you usually see at these types of competitions. And then people started to walk away, and we were left there. And I remember standing there with Jack when this was done, and just looked at each other and said, "Is that it?"
So there wasn't a magical moment, like a feeling, an energy or something. You just got down and got the people going at it.
And it was, I mean, this is skydiving, mind you, so it's not like you're going to go get a $10 million check. It's not like you're about to get all sorts of sponsorship and endorsement opportunities. We just looked at each other, is that it? And we were like, I think that's it. And this feeling of, I'm so glad that we didn't do it just for that. And that was a great moment. I mean, it was great. It was great to win. I'm much more fond of winning than losing, having done them both a lot. But this goal we had aimed for, when we actually achieved it, it so wasn't about that. That wasn't. It was all the things leading up to that we'd already spoken about. But it was just a really funny moment when you put that goals in perspective. But then you have to go and say, okay, now I want to go after another goal. When you reach, won't be a big deal either.
Breno, I just want to, again, just build on something Dan just said, because I think that was a key learning. And some of, I don't know about your early failures, but my early failures in the sport, losses at big meets, maybe even that we should have won, were pretty dramatic. And I remember when I was quite young, I was just focused on winning. Like, that was the goal. And I think one of the significant differences that changed how I look at goal setting now was, while we put the winning the world championship as sort of the stated goal, it was almost like in business it'd be like the earnings number we're going to want, or the revenue target we're hitting. It's not really the point. And so what we did on airspeed that was patently different than anything I did before that was we got clear about a bigger picture reasons why we were there beyond winning. And I remember we said it, if we do all these other things that we really want to do, and one of them, by the way, was the impact that we wanted to have on the culture of the sport, as we talked about earlier. That was one of the bigger things we were going for. But we really believed that the goal, the world championship win, would fall out of the bottom of it, like as a byproduct, if we stayed focused on a much bigger thing. And that was a huge lesson in that. I think in whatever goals you're setting, right? There's like the reason you're doing something, and then there's the goal, and they're different things. Anyways, I just wanted to call that out.
It's funny. I remember thinking at that time, as we were learning this, that man, winning isn't nearly as good as losing does suck. I remember hating losing all those years, right? Thinking that if I won, that would be the big accomplishment, because this is what happens as you're growing up. And losing, I hated. Then we won. It was like, well, that was great. It was terrific, but it didn't. The actual win didn't make me anywhere near as happy as the actual loss made me miserable.
So there's a lot of people out there that win because they're just so darn afraid of losing.
I know exactly what losing feels like, and some winning too. But anyway, yeah, that's fantastic, guys. We're just coming out on an hour here. Any final thoughts? Any final comments? I do have a couple of other things to talk right at the end, but I just wanted you guys on final thoughts and thinking. And then we have one here that I think it's for you. There's a question asking about if we're going to break the 400 way or not.
This depends on having. We have the airplanes, we have the talent and the skill amongst the jumpers, but we need somebody to actually pay for the airplanes. It's going to require, we when Jack and I and George organized the 300 way, we pretty well decided we had maxed out how many otters you can put up to do this with. And having the huge aircraft is a big part of it, and that's going to require some kind of military support or a very big investor or sponsor who wants to see it happen. But sooner or later that will happen, and when it does, then we'll go break it.
Fantastic. But final thoughts, Dan. I kind of threw that question there, but any final thoughts there?
Oh man, it's just a pleasure to get to hang out and have the conversation. This is as much as history of airspeed is history now. I mean, Jack and I both got off the team full time in '99. This is decades ago. But the experience we had, the years that we shared there, this conversation has just reminded me of how valuable that was, and how that will always be a huge part of my life, and everything I do since then, I do as a person who learned the lessons I did during that time. And I can't help but want to just encourage people to find something you love as much as we love that you want to get behind and commit to as much as we did that, and go for it. However it works out, the experience itself will make it worthwhile. You won't regret it.
That's cool. Jack?
Yeah, well, first, Breno, thanks for the time. Dan, it's been great reconnecting. Sorry it took this to get us on the phone together. I just have a message for all the Brazilian skydivers out there listening in. Some of you, I hope, remember me. Brazil has always had a big place in my heart, a really big place in my heart. For some of the older among you, you'll remember the Ubatuba boogies back in the 90s that I did every year. And and in fact, what you may not know is I still come to Brazil with some regularity because I do some work down there. But there's something about Brazil that's just special, and it's the people, and it's who you are. And so know that that's, in my heart. And my message is just about this current crisis that we're all in. look, a lot of the world's suffering, but Brazil's, getting it on the chin right about now. I think you're kind of in your peak right around now. And community really matters. And as we're isolated, we feel somewhat separated. And I just encourage you all to stay in touch with your skydiving community. It's such a wonderful community, and together we get through challenging times like this. So I just wanted to say that, and again, thank you, Bruno.
Thank you, Guy. And by the way, about you coming to Brazil, I just want to apologize to you in public. I mean, Jack came to my house. He was really tired. He came to my house, and I said, I'll cook dinner. So we opened up a bottle of wine, and I asked him what he wanted. He said a piece of steak. So I started cooking. How do you want it? He was like, rare. And we just started talking and drinking wine, and sure enough, he had a tennis shoe sole for dinner. So sorry about that, Jack. But guys, thank you so much for taking the time again. I mean, two celebrities of skydiving. I mean, even though, Dan, you said it's history, I mean, you're still in skydiving doing all the records and organizing all of that stuff. But Jack, I mean, both of you with Kirk and everybody. Oh, we're going to host Kirk and Craig as well here, I think next week or so. But anyway, you guys are celebrities and will always be. So thank you so much in the name of not only the Brazilian skydiving community, but the world skydiving community for what you guys have done for skydiving. Like I said, at least in my mind, you guys changed the course of skydiving. So I'll pass the word back to you guys, but I just really want to really thank you guys for the time.
Pleasure. Anytime.
Pleasure, guys. Good fun.
And guys, everybody who's watching, and this is going to be on this channel. You guys can see it as many times as you want to. Please like the video and share the video with everybody else. And we have Mexicans here with us. I can see there. Nacho, thank you for watching, and everybody else for watching here too. We have the Brazilian Army watching here too. So, guys, thank you so much. Dan BC, Jack Jeffries, thank you so much for the time.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right.